I'm going to take some time to debunk a really nasty myth in society. It is this idea that children need to be molded, they need to be controlled, they need to be manipulated, they need to be disciplined harshly from a very young age. This idea that children are evil and vile little things is a vestigial organ transmitted from long ago and still kept intact today. The idea comes from these pedagogical traditions of the 16th and 17th century Europe and Germany, especially. But children are they're human beings. They're not vile or evil creatures. They don't need to be controlled and brought into this, or they don't need to be controlled in order to be brought up as these perfect creatures, these disciplined people who are going to be upright citizens, who are going to be these perfect worker drones. That's all nonsense, and that's not how it works. The science has already debunked these old pedagogical notions. So we're going to get into that now. What is going on at a young age? Are children really naturally evil? What is going on? Okay, neurologically, around the ages of 1 to 3, the brain, especially the prefrontal cortex region and the other upper areas of the brain, are growing tremendously. There's a process of pruning that's taking place where old neural connections are being broken down and new neural connections are being created. One of the other key things that's happening at this tender age is that connections from the upper regions of the cortex are descending in to the lower regions of the brain, which is referred to as the limbic area. Now, the limbic area is primarily in control of our emotions, emotional regulations, emotional memories, and emotional content. Now, at a young age, all these descending neural networks haven't made connections, and this is what gives children their volatility at a young age. It's what gives them their highly emotional, highly rash, highly unpredictable character oftentimes. Now, this is not to say that all children are the same in regards to temperament. Children are all different, varied, unique, but most of them do have emotional outbursts. And obviously now, I've already given you a very quick and simple understanding of why children are not naturally evil. Children are not naturally bad. They don't need to have the devil beaten out of them, as the old religious texts have seemed to suggest, as old European dogmatic priests and preachers have brought into the fold, as authoritarian personalities have tended to preach. All of this pedagogy has been absolutely debunked by neuropsychology. So what happens when children do get beat, when they do get controlled, manipulated, and they have their emotions flattened at this young age with all these developmental neurological actions taking place? So instead what happens is when these children are hurt and harmed, it creates a malfunction in all of these connections. It's what produces trauma because the connections don't take place in a healthy fashion. And children, they learn and their brain adapts to survive in violent situations, in traumatic situations. And this is a good thing because it's what allows us to survive. However, what this leads to down the road is lack of emotional control, what the literature refers to as flattening of affect, or the inability to express emotions. This is also being called alexithymia in some people. So it also leads to what they've referred to as mental illness, various forms of depression, post-traumatic stress, etc. It is because of this flavor of abuse that have been handed to children at a young age that has caused all of these malfunctions. So instead of growing up to be wholesome people, to be obedient, and maybe they do to some degree, but they also become bitter, they become angry, resentful, and they pass this vicious cycle of control onto their own children in the nastiest, ugliest way possible because they think that they turned out okay. That's part of the myth making in modern culture about how children should be controlled. So instead, what we need to do now is we need to understand the neurology. We need to start treating children respectfully, give them dignity, bestow them with rights because they are awesome, because we love them, because we have compassion and understanding. We have truth. I am the psychologic anarchist, and we are part of the relational and compassionate anarchy communities. I will leave relevant links in the description below, but there's two primary sources that I recommend everybody read. Alice Miller was a psychotherapist. She wrote For Your Own Good, which contains all of the pedagogical texts and relevant quotations and about how treating children badly has been passed down as a nasty cultural convention. And for the neurology, I really recommend Luis Cozzolino's book, The Neuroscience of Psychotherapy. He talks about these descending networks and children growing up in traumatic and violent situations and what that does to them, what that does to their brain. Please subscribe below. Like I said, I'll leave the relevant links.